Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, maybe good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very, very excited to have all of you here. I know that all of you are incredibly busy and could be any place. So I'm very, very excited to have all of you here today. We're going to wait another 2 minutes, so 3 minutes past, before we get started. But in the meantime, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Feel free to let us know where you're joining us from. That's always a lot of fun to know. Maybe where you're joining us from, what you do. You're also welcome, of course, to drop your LinkedIn profile as well, just so we can get to know you a little bit better and as more people make their way in. But just thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. And once again, just want to encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Feel free to drop your LinkedIn profile as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and also share my screen as well. All right. Thank you for starting us off. Thank you so much for joining us, Julia. Glad to have you. All right. So it's 3 minutes past. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm super excited about today's conversation and super excited about today's guest experts, two incredible women in very different parts of the world. And they're going to have an opportunity to share a little bit more about themselves and where they live in a second. As always, I have a few slides to go through to get us started. So for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, this is the People Before Strategy Roundtable. I am once again super excited that all of you have taken some time to join us today. So we're going to have an opportunity to share experiences. We're going to have an opportunity to ask questions, but most importantly, we're going to have an opportunity to connect. So I just once again want to invite all of you to introduce yourself in the chat. You're welcome to also drop your LinkedIn profile as well if you want to connect with others. All right, so today we're going to start off with just a quick round of introductions. It's always really nice to know who's in the room. We're then going to get into talking about coaching, right? And especially coaching in the workplace, what that involves, what that can look like, what that entails. And we have two amazing guest experts that can speak about it from so many different angles. And then, of course, we have the opportunity for your questions. Feel free at any point in time, though, to raise your hand, to ask a question. I really want to make sure you get what you want out of our time together. And so if you have a burning question that you feel is relevant, during the conversation, I invite you to, unmute, or you're welcome to also ask the question in the chat as well. Okay. So once again, I think I saw 1 or 2 new people join. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Once again, would love to know where you're joining us from. What do you do? Also, feel free to drop your LinkedIn URL as well. All right. And as you do that, I'll just take a quick second to introduce myself. When I do this slide, I try to make it relevant to the conversation we're having. So for those of you maybe who are joining for the first time, I always love to spell out my name, Akua. My dad's from Ghana. He calls me Ikria. My mom is American. She still calls me Akua. And I grew up mostly in places where they call me Aqua. I'm not picky about it. If you've ever met me or joined any one of my sessions, I say any variation of that. Just don't call me Indigo. I had one person call me Indigo once because she thought aqua, color, blue, indigo. I was like, that's no good. Close, but no. And I use coaching as my primary tool, I would say, in the transformation work that I do. So I've had the opportunity to invest in my own coaching career. I actually started at a coaching school, actually in Nigeria. So had a lot of fun learning about coaching, overcoming my fears of how to ask questions while I lived and worked in Nigeria. And since then, I've had the opportunity to coach over 500 hours. All right. And when I think about my own coaching journey, especially as it relates to coaching in the workplace, one thing that always comes up for me is how hard it was for me to take a step back and allow my team members to actually problem solve for themselves, right? So many times I wanted to jump in, solve questions, right? Answer questions for them. And so for me, coaching has been a really great way not only to learn a new tool to support others to grow, but also a great way to get me to think about my own bias. A lot of times when I think of coaching or I share my own coaching journey, I talk about how I feel like I was my first client. And I think that a lot of people who go through a coaching credential, who work with coaches, probably feel quite similar. All right. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind about any space I create is that I believe that coaching is really a process, it's a system. And really what you need to do is know where you are, right? Because no 2 days are we the same leader. Sometimes we need a little bit more rest. Other times we might need to pull in other resources to support us. And so really just recognizing, yes, we can always add more tools to our toolkit, but even more important to that is knowing that we're going to always have ups and downs. And so for me, I think that's always an important thing to keep in mind. And I think that coaching, right, having that self-reflection practice can help you ride that wave, can help you understand where you are within that process. All right. Wait, can you not hear me? No? Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, great. Great.
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's whether Na has a challenge with her sound.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry about that, Na. Na, can you hear me now? I'm not sure if you're actually connected. Thank you for calling that out, Taaka. Let's see here. I don't think you're connected with your audio yet. On my end, I don't see your audio being connected. You might want to, oh, she probably can't hear me. Ha ha ha. Let me just write her a quick note. Yeah, you might want to leave and come back. Simply to try and get your audio to work. All right. So what I would like to do is actually have my two guest experts take a second to introduce themselves. Super excited to have both of them. So maybe we can get started with Taaka. Taaka, can you please take, a minute or two to talk a little bit about who you are?
Thank you. And so excited to be here. Lovely to meet all of you. And I'm gonna take a tip from you in terms of the way you introduced yourself with a focus on coaching. So I am the CEO and founder of Busara Africa. It's a Pan-African leadership and organizational development firm. But I came to coaching. When you mentioned your year, Akuya, I had to think back, oh my gosh, she remembered. So I quickly went back to see now, when did I actually get my coaching certificate? And I realized it was 10 years ago. Gosh, so it's been 10 years since I got certified as a coach, ACC and what they call PCC. So many hours coaching. And for me too, I think the two primary mechanisms or tools I use in terms of leadership development are facilitation and slash training and coaching. And it's something, and my practice spans primarily, I would say, the continent, but has grown to be global. I will end with where I am joining you from, because I can see where folks are from and where I am from, because I think Africans like to know, where is this one from? So I'm joining you all, like many of you on the call, from Accra. And the different countries that call me home or call me theirs are Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, and Liberia. Those are all my homes, but I'm joining you from Accra. So lovely to be here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Athena.
Well, I love that introduction. I guess I'd have to say my true home is California, right where I am.
Yeah.
I live about 15 miles from where I was born. So although I've been around the world, I keep coming home here. So in terms of my coaching career, well, I have you both beat. I got certified in 2004. Being in California, it is one of the original kind of capitals of coaching, right? So I had the privilege of being able to just drive down the street to get my coach training. And I was so inspired by it that I actually applied to be a coach trainer at the same organization where I got trained, which is the Coactive Training Institute, which is one of the original organizations that started coach training all around the world. And they have had programs in many, many countries around the world. So I've had the experience of getting to coach people, but also training coaches. And then there was a phase in my career where I was training managers how to use a coach approach to managing and leading. So that's one of the reasons I loved this invitation from Aqua. I'll also say that I've been involved, very deeply involved in the Women's Impact Alliance since its founding. One of my coaching clients founded the Women's Impact Alliance because she was a high-level director at Mozilla. I was assigned to her as her coach. She didn't know about coaching, had never had a coach, and then decided it was the best thing she ever had, not necessarily because of me, but because of the power of coaching. And she decided ultimately to become a coach herself, and then made really the amazing revelation that women in social impact who could benefit so much from coaching would never be able to afford it. And so that's why she founded the Women's Impact Alliance and started to offer coaching to women in social impact, environmental change, international development all around the world. And I will say, because we have so many African women on the call today, that our largest growing group in our community is from Africa. I'd say 35 to 40% of the women right now who are going through our program are from Africa, which is really exciting for us. So I'll leave it at that, but I could go on about coaching forever. I think it is magic.
Absolutely amazing. And I'm a massive, massive fan of the Women Impact Alliance and actually have been an executive coach since I've been credentialed. So I will be sharing more information about that towards the end of our conversation here as well. But thank you both so much for taking some time to introduce yourself. All right, I want to give everyone in here the opportunity to also talk a little bit. I think we actually have enough people here to just do a quick little breakout room, okay? And so with this breakout room, just want to be really clear, you're not going to have enough time. I'm only going to give you 5 minutes. It's going to feel rushed, and that's kind of the point. So I want you to get straight into it. And the idea here is if you need to figure out a way to, select who goes first, just choose the person who has their birthday next, okay? So that's going to be the person who's going to go first in this breakout room, all right? And what I would love for you to do is to answer the question, what is your most recent disappointment, all right? And this particular question was actually inspired by a book by one of our guest experts. And I have a little quote that comes along with it because I have greatly enjoyed actually reading, I would say specifically 2 chapters of Taaka's book. I would say chapter 5, which is dedicated to self-love and the importance of loving yourself as a leader. And then chapter 6, embracing failure and build resilience. And so that's what this little opener has really been inspired by. And so just keeping in mind that a lot of times when we're really hard on ourselves, we tend to be hard on others. And so I invite you to reflect on your most recent disappointment and share that with your partner. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put you into breakout rooms. Once again, you're only going to have about 5 minutes. So think about what you might share and what you feel comfortable sharing, of course. And I'll start us off actually here in the group. So when I thought about this in terms of work, the first thing that came to mind was I've had a client for about 3 years, but recently they asked me to decrease my rates, or they asked me to accept a decrease in the rates. And I will say it was a little hurtful. I was a little disappointed and maybe a little resentful. And then from a life perspective, and you can choose one or the other, you don't have to share from both. I wrote down here, I recently went on a trip and was hoping that someone important would come with me. They weren't able to make it. And so I was a little disappointed about that. All right. So those were my 2. 1, a little resentful about some pricing. And then 2, a trip. I was hoping someone important could come away with me. All right. If you cannot join a breakout room, that's absolutely fine. Just feel free to stay in the main room. All right. So feel free to stay in the main room. You do not need to click on the breakout. I hear someone. Please go ahead. Oh, no, don't hear them. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create the breakout rooms. If you can't join it, that's absolutely fine. I'll move things around. All right. So 5 minutes to share what is your most recent disappointments. And if you have any issues, feel free to let me know.
Should I join the breakout room, Aqua? I got an invitation.
Yes, it will put you into one. Yes.
Great. Here I go.
Okay. Jacqueline, are you there? Can you hear me? Welcome back, Ikria. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. So we're waiting for a few more people. Would anyone like to share what it was maybe like in the smaller group?
I'll go, Akua.
Please. So nice to have you. Yay.
Nice to be here. It is my pleasure as always. And before I go, I would love to say that you did such a lovely job today with Anna Varner on the I Am Remarkable session this morning. I don't know if
Oh,
that was
thank
recorded, but you did a
you.
lovely job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Lovely,
really
lovely
appreciate
job.
that. Yeah, it would
Yes.
depend on what time you saw it. Based on the fact that you're based in the US, it probably was recorded because we did it my time, 9 a.m. It was 9 a.m. GMT.
And it was
So,
it was 5 a.m. here. And I was
oh,
hoping it was live,
you
but
got
I
up
mean I
early
got
for
up.
that then. Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. Anything for you. Anything. If you're there, I'm there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So you saw it live then. That was live. Yep.
Okay, awesome,
Mhm.
awesome. So I was just sharing with Taka and Akua, we weren't able to hear her, so hopefully she can put in the chat. My disappointment was similar to Taka, and just not to go into details, but we were both disappointed in ourselves. And so we said we should give ourselves more grace and not beat ourselves up for things that we didn't get done or accomplished. Today is day one. We're moving forward. Whatever we get done today, we'll be proud of that accomplishment and move forward. So thank you. That was awesome. It felt good that I wasn't alone in that. Thank you, Taka.
Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, I love how we've already gone straight to like reframing and putting things into context. We're already starting to coach and coach ourselves. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right. I think I see Dorcas. Was there something you wanted to be able to, was there something you wanted to share? I think that you've unmuted. No? Okay.
Sorry.
No. Please do not apologize. Please do not apologize. All right. Ikria in the chat says, I have not been able to meet my goals for my clientele base for this month. Yep, right. There's probably always something, right? That might come up for us, right? And the reason why I wanted to do this little prompt is because I think that coaching or using coaching tools and techniques can be a really great way for us to work through some of this completely normal and natural human disappointment, right? And it can be a very helpful way to support others also as well, right? Especially within the workplace. All right. So with that, I would love for us to now get into some of the questions that we have for the guest experts. As always, I invite you as well to ask questions. You're welcome to ask them in the chat, and you're also, of course, welcome to unmute and share them out loud as well. But I'm going to get started with this first question. I'm going to start off maybe with Athena. I'll ask this question to you. And of course, Taaka, you're invited to answer it afterwards as well, or we can make our way to a new question. All right. So one of the things I hear a lot with the work that I do is how to sort of shift from manager to coach and what that shift can look like. In your view, what is the most significant difference between a manager's traditional role and that of a coach? And should we even make the distinction? Does it matter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the last part of that question. Should we make the distinction? And I think your whole point of having this conversation is to shift from traditional management to a coach approach to managing. I think that's what you're really encouraging here. So I'd love it if we never had to make the distinction again between traditional management and coaching, that it would just, that there would be a transformation really. So to me, if you are working now as a traditional manager, I think the fundamental difference goes back a little bit to what you said before, Aqua, about your own experience of, do you want to stay in the job of fixing things and problem solving, or do you want to empower the people that work for you to grow and learn and take greater and greater ownership and responsibility? And I think we're always going to answer option two, And part of it, I really think, is how do you see yourself as a leader, and how do you see the people who work for you or work on your team? Do you see them as kind of instruments to, get things done and forward your or the organization's goals, or do you see them as human beings who are on a path with their own visions, their own dreams, their own goals, their own path of evolution, and the second one is the coach mindset or the coach approach, that it's not a transactional relationship. These are human beings. You are a human being and you are in relationship with your team members. And at the core of a coach approach is this relationship, and how, I kind of back way up and think about, why do we all come to work? Why does anybody show up to work? And what is our highest dream of what that work experience could be? And as a leader, the highest dream could be about what is the impact you have on the people who work with you. What is the ultimate impact? And I think we've all had bosses that have really inspired us, touched us, invested in us. I hope we all have had that. I know I have, and many people I know have had that. And we've also all had bosses who have dominated us, crushed our spirits, belittled us, or underestimated our abilities. And that's soul crushing, So when we come to work as a leader or as somebody on a team, I think we always have that human hope that this could be a really positive and transformational experience. So really the shift is, who do you see yourself as a leader? What do you think of as your job when you come to work? Yes, you have to get things done. And I'm not saying, you don't have productivity goals and things that you have to meet and financial goals and all of that. Yes, you do. But how do you want to get to those goals? And who do you want to be as a leader? What's the impact you want to make as you are, achieving those goals? So those are my initial thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what Taaka says.
Taaka, yes.
+1 +1 +1 underscore. Fully agree. And then I want to add to it, because I just have to say, I really, a lot of what Athena says deeply resonates and fully agree with her. What I would like to add to it are some of the challenges I've seen African leaders grapple with as they seek to practice this type of leadership. And I want to borrow some of the words you used, Athena. I love the way you put it. You said, at core, this is about a relationship. And so many times I talk about leadership being a dance that you do with another or with a group of folks, so that it ceases to be less about what you do alone. And I think that as a dance, because on the continent, we're always dancing, and we don't dance alone. We dance with others. You're watching how are people moving, and then you move the same way. And what I found for many of the leaders is, and I've seen it myself, you seek, and you remember you just ended with that, Athena, is that your mindset changes about how you think about leadership. The but comes in when the one you are dancing with does not have the same idea about leadership. So I've started to realize that those who are best able to use a coaching approach to lead others are those who have worked with colleagues to also appreciate that a leader is not there just to direct. A leader is not there to just tell you what to do, but a leader is there to empower you and clear the path for you. Without developing that understanding within them, then often people are left confused. They're like, but you are the one earning the big salary. You're the one with the big job. Why are you asking me all these questions? You tell me what to, you don't seem to be clear on what your job is. And I am confused. So actually, you actually leave them more confused because they're like, whose role is what? You keep wanting me to lead this thing, but you are paid. So what I've found is that the ability, even when you have that right mindset, the ability to use this approach works best when you carry along those you're seeking to lead in this approach in that same shift so that you together have the same expectations of what a leader actually looks like and does.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that, Taka. And if you were to give a leader maybe some tips or tricks on how to bring their team along or get to that point where they can appreciate being asked these questions and problem solving for themselves, especially within the African context, what is some of the advice that you might share with them?
I would say, first is to have some real candid conversations about how they're understanding what my role is. And how I approach leadership. I remember when I was starting out at Action Aid, we had to have many a conversation about saying to folks, people, please stop rushing to carry my handbag. I'm not that type of leader. Please stop calling me mummy, or you can call me Taka. So it's constantly finding moments to redefine our understanding of leadership. And then it's those quick coaching moments. When something would come up and they'd be like, well, madam, what is it you think? I said, well, actually, remember, guys, I've said that my approach to leadership is not to tell you all what to do. And I hope generally in this organization, that will not be our approach to leadership. Remember, our approach is about each learning and part. It's me clearing the way for you. So please understand, I'm going to turn the question back at you to say, well, what do you think? And that is why I'm asking you that question. I genuinely want to know, what do you think? Because someday I may not be here. And I also believe that you do have the answers. You understand so I think that element of very practically and constantly and consistently having the conversations about how we are redefining what managing people looks like, what leading people looks like, I think the more then we're able to carry folks along with us.
I absolutely love that, right? So within a coaching context, we might call that like contracting, right? We're constantly on the same page about the agreement, what this space is about, what we're trying to get out of it. And your suggestion is to be very explicit, because I think in too many situations, whether you're on the continent or in other parts of the world, we're very implicit. We have this expectation people should know, right? That you should know this is what I should do as a leader, and this is what you should know you should do as an employee as well. Athena, I'd love to hear your perspective as someone who's gone into organizations and supported them with thinking about their culture from this perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love what you're saying, Taka. The couple things that I want to underscore that Taka said just is that the candidness of those conversations that you were sharing, Taka, and the reinforcement in very informal ways in using kind of the moment to underscore, oh, this, remember when we talked about how this is my leadership style? This is what we're talking about right here. And also a little bit of humor. I think humor goes a long way, And I will say that I've also seen a lot in leadership settings where similar thing, Taka, different culturally, but similar in the sense that like, hey, just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. I don't want to go through this whole rigmarole of what do I think? And then, just tell me what to do. I'll go do it. I'm good at that, And it is a change in mindset, not just for the leader or the manager, but also their team member. So I love this, what you're talking about of the design and building on what you're saying, Aqua, the contract. An expression that I learned long ago is the idea of designing your alliance with whether it's a client as a coach or as a leader with your team members or between team members. And this is a skill I taught a lot in organizations, both to higher level leaders and their team members, which the idea is a conscious creation of the relationship. Because, as you said, usually we go through life with a lot of implied non-understandings. We think people understand. And so it's really explicit, and sometimes it's a little awkward, because people are not used to saying, this is who I am, and this is how I operate, and this is what would be really helpful to me, and this is what I need from you, and this is what you can count on from me. But having that conversation where both people in the relationship, leader and team member, or between team members, can be very candid, to use your word, Taaka, about who they are and how they operate. And that's not a one-time conversation. It's over and over and over again until really you train each other. It's a way of training each other and kind of negotiating, because one person might say, well, I just never look at my email until, after 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And the other one is saying, hey, I need you to see things at 8 or 9 in the morning and start moving on them and tell me how it's going. So even things like that, it's a negotiation. All aspects of the relationship, you're kind of negotiating. So that's a long way of saying this idea of designing your relationship consciously, everyone being real about who they are and how they operate. Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Yeah. And I think that that's key, right? To thinking about coaching or applying coaching within the workplace. Because I think too many leaders feel like it has to be this formalized set time period where I'm the coach and you're the coachee. And I love this idea of thinking about it in time, right? You can apply these tools and techniques all the time. And the key piece, right, that I think you've identified here is this importance of contracting, of having this agreement, of design. I love it. And yeah, in WIA, we talk about designing, right, the alliance. I think that's a really nice, constructive way of talking about it. And that's a key skill I think any successful leader is able to build, and something that they role model, most importantly, right, for their colleagues as well. So I absolutely love that. And I think this is actually maybe a great segue, Taaka, for us to think about maybe coaching styles and approaches through the different sectors and the different types of work that you've done really all around the world. Your coaching has spanned, public, private, civil society, different sectors around the world. What have you observed? What are some maybe the unique challenges and opportunities in adopting, coaching styles within the different spaces and spheres you found yourself?
So a couple of things, and it's interesting. I found, and let me contrast the public sector, and most of this, it's ranged globally. But the public sector that I've worked with has been primarily on the continent. The private sector has been on the continent. Civil society has been more global. And there's some interesting things I've seen in terms of the differences. I'll start with where it's been easiest to actually apply this coaching approach. And that has been in our development sector, the non-for-profit sector, civil society. And I found that's because so many of us in this sector have already been ingrained and socialized with perspectives around equity, inclusion. So all of that isn't so, it's never just about the bottom line, because most of us are mission driven in that sector. So I found that the kinds of underpinnings of a coaching approach are readily acceptable in that respect. In the private sector, it's been fascinating in that I have found with the private sector, actually, it's been a lot more organized and designed to be more impactful. Because what I found in civil society, we've done the coaching as long as you feel good, it's okay. Whereas with my private sector clients, it's been like, you need to show us our return on investment. You need to show us a shift in leadership behavior as a result of the coaching. So in that respect, I've seen, and that's of the formal coaching, but also the coaching as managers. And it's been a lot more explicit in terms of managers using a coaching approach, how that plays out in terms of KPIs, what the results will be. So they know it's for the bottom line, but because it's for the bottom line, it's more tightly measured. So what I've sought to do is actually take a lot of those approaches and bring that into some of our civil society work, and then bring in some of the civil society values into the private sector work. So that's been interesting to do that. The sector where we're struggling the most and where we need it the most, as you can imagine, is the public sector. I've spent quite a number of years, working with the Electricity Company of Ghana, one of my most favorite state-owned enterprises. Because sincerely, even though many of you on this call, your lights may go off at any second right now, fingers crossed they don't. The truth is that place is run by some serious, dedicated, committed public servants. And it's really more than ever, you see, what's stifling their ability to display all that talent they have is the absence of solid leadership that uses this approach. So where I've found the biggest gap is where it has been needed the most, because there's some really solid folks there who are trying to make a difference, but are truly stifled.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I remember there's like a case study or two of the ECG in the book. And I was so excited to see that. I was like, oh my gosh. Athena, I would love to hear your perspective and maybe also add a little bit about the work you do with empowering women through coaching as well. Why do you think that's so important as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So I am not going to add anything to what Taaka said because I think she covered it all. And I loved hearing that kind of transfer of your knowledge and experience and expertise from the private sector to the nonprofit sector, because I think and vice versa, because I think there's so much exchange that can happen. And those of us who have been in both arenas are really good bridges for that. So I love that. That was really exciting for me to hear, Taaka. But I'll put my focus on women since that's what, I've spent a lot of my career focused on women. And so I'm going to put a little bit of my perspective here in general, which is I firmly believe that we need more women in leadership roles at every decision-making table around the world, everywhere, to influence and have control over decisions that are made. So that's my ultimate thing. And so how do we get there? There's lots of ways to get there. And one of my underlying beliefs, by the way, is it is not about equality, because we're already equal, sisters. We are already equal. We do not have to climb any mountain or prove anything to show that we're equal, because we are. It's more about access and the courage for us to speak our mind, to use our voices, to put our perspectives forward, to use the incredible gifts and talents and skills that we have. So we have the Women's Impact Alliance, which thank you, Aqua, for your many years of dedication to empowering women in our program. And the reason we chose, and our original founder, Jane Finette, chose coaching as the core of our program, is that what we found is that many women have what it takes to be a very effective leader, but they don't have the confidence to come forward. And it seems, after years of reading the applications of women for our program and meeting the women who get into our program, it really kind of comes down to that. They have the intellect, they have the training, they have the passion, the vision, the ability. And it is really heartbreaking, actually, for me to see how many women don't have the confidence in themselves to put themselves out there, to take the risks, to step up, to speak up. And so this is why I think coaching is so impactful for women leaders. And not only in the nonprofit or the social impact or in the environmental or global development space, also in the private sector, because I've coached a lot of women there too. And so with coaching, you have a partner that can reflect back to you your brilliance, your magnificence, that can stand by you when you're feeling scared, that can remind you that you have what it takes, And in a certain way, it's like, wow, is it really that simple? It's just self-confidence. And on the other hand, it's like, that is such an inner game. It is so much inner work. And, Akawa, you did a session with us about quieting the inner critic, about reframing the idea of imposter syndrome, to build the inner capacity. You've already done all the, you've gotten your degree and you've had your this and your that and everything else that shows on paper you're good, but the inner capacity is one of the key things that coaching can bring to women leaders that is just critical. And I'm not saying men don't suffer from some self-confidence things too, but my personal passion and our focus is on women because of this belief that, and proof, data-backed proof that when women are in leadership positions, the communities, the world, the regions just improve on so many measurable levels, so am I passionate enough about that?
Love it.
I love that.
Absolutely,
I love
absolutely
it.
love it.
Would either of you add anything to that about in
Oh,
terms of women and coaching?
oh, you're speaking to my heart, Athena, when you talk about the inner work. I mean, and I would like to circle back to I also do lots of work around women's leadership and see this issue of the, issues around confidence. But going back to the issue of the dance around leadership, what I've found is that beyond that initial contracting to say this is the kind of dance that we will do, for people to step into the space that you're creating for them, because I think so much of this coaching approach as leader is seeing the greatness in people that they don't see for themselves. But it means that they may not step into that because it's always a dance of worthiness or rather unworthiness. It's that also as the manager, you're also giving them the tools to do the inner work. And I know at least on this continent, we've not found a language for it. We've not found the kinds of, and this is where the coaching world comes in. But sometimes it's difficult when, again, there's pressure to get things done and all of that. It's like, now where are we going to start talking about this? And particularly if you're talking about males, and we know a whole thing about African men and about how do you start telling me I'm not confident? I am confident. It's because all of those issues come out. So it's finding culturally and gender responsive ways to support people to just do that, to do that inner work so that they can step into the spaces, the power that coaching approach then enables them to do. So really love what you're sharing, Athena.
Yeah, I love what you're sharing too, and I want to also say about inner work that the coach, and we're talking about coaches who are professional coaches, but managers,
Yeah.
leaders also have to do the inner work.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, because if
Yes.
you are not doing it, you are not going to be able to support your team. You have to see what are the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that are holding me back? Where's my inner critic stepping in? How am I controlling and reactive instead of trusting and creative? One of the I don't know if I want to call it the downsides of deciding to be a coach leader or take the leadership of coaches. You cannot rest on, what you've already done. You always have to be looking, growing, willing to change. And I kind of, with some leaders that I've coached, we do joke about this. I was like, okay, well, sorry, but you're never going to be able to go back to sleep again. Now
Time
that
to
you woke
awaken.
up, this is the rest of your life. But I love that personally. I mean, it's part of being a professional coach too, is that you're always growing, you're always learning, you're always uncovering more ways to free yourself from the limits that, you have either picked up from your, being socialized in a certain way, or that you have developed in reaction to something to protect yourself. We're always kind of unpeeling more, and you kind of think you're done at some point, but guess what? You're not. So I did want to bring that piece in it, that we always have to be growing too.
Well said. Well said. I mean, in Taaka's book, I think your first, I want to say 8 chapters are all about inner work before you even start talking about team and actually engaging with other people. So I think Taaka is very much aligned, and I also agree. I think your inner world impacts your outer world, right? How you perform, the results you have, and the relationships you have as well. So very much agree as well. And also can't believe we have about 10 minutes left together. Time, yeah, I know. Time has flown by. This has been absolutely incredible. So I don't know if there's any questions from anyone in the audience, but I do have one question that was shared. And Aaron is actually here, so I'm very excited to have Aaron. But this was his question. And I will say, like, this is a bit of a shift in our conversation. This is talking about it a bit more, I would say, operationally. So maybe we can spend about 2 minutes on this and then see if there's any other questions from the audience. What strategy does one use to engage leaders of organizations to embrace coaching as a key activity for managers? How do we get coaching on the list of KPIs for managers or executives? So, I don't know. Either one of you like to start us off with sharing your perspective on how to, I guess, bring in coaching, make it relevant. I know, Taaka, you already talked a little bit about how some private sector companies see it as a way to increase the bottom line, but any other tools, techniques? Athena, I see you've unmuted, so we'll have you
I was
start.
going to say, I'd love to hear
Oh.
Taaka kind of
Okay.
elaborate on what you talked about before about KPIs, because I think you were going right down that track. And if there's time,
Please.
I'll on a couple of things.
Sounds good.
Sure. I mean, what I've seen, particularly in the private sector, where initially those from, for instance, the leads in people and culture who are trying to bring in a lot more of a coaching approach have gotten resistant, say, don't bring in all this fluffy stuff. What the kinds of things they have done is, one, made a tighter linkage. And first of all, they've made the case right up at the top. I found the more that the senior leaders are committed to understand it, model it, the more then it can filter down. So they've made the case in terms of making that tight connection between the type of leadership behavior that's desired and the bottom line, but also how that leadership behavior or that employee behavior is affected by a leadership approach that's more a coaching approach. So making that tight case, I think, is what I've seen has really worked. The second thing is then breaking down what those competencies actually look like in practice. So what does it look like in terms of, they ask powerful questions, they're less directive. So breaking that down in terms of skills, experience, that has helped. Otherwise, again, it's just sounded too fluffy, but it's also helped in terms of being able to measure, so that when those particular leaders either go through 360s or any types of appraisals, they're very concrete behavior to say, all right, what does a coaching approach actually look like? What have we seen? What needs to be strengthened in that? So maybe I'll hand back to you, Athena, to see what else you've seen.
Totally agree. And that's been my experience too, of a learning and development person, or even the head of HR, having a very close relationship with the CEO, and, bending their ear and over a period of time, kind of convincing them, and then bringing that into the next level down and the next level down. In one experience, one organization where I had the opportunity to do a lot of work with a partner of mine, what we saw is that when we worked with the director level of managers over like about a 9-month period, their direct reports were noticing a change in their behavior. And they asked, hey, we want to get some of the training that you're getting. And so that was exciting to see. Wow, it had that kind of impact. So there's also this thing of, how do you ripple it through the organization? It is through seeing behavior, as you were saying, seeing the coaching behavior and feeling the impact up and down. Um, and as you said, I love your point, talk about what are the specific skills that we can measure? What can we say? Because it is kind of there, the biggest challenge is the fluffy factor, for sure. And being from California, the capital of fluff, I'm very conscious of the kind of, well, what is this soft, mushy thing? And so you do have to concretize it. These are the skills and this is the impact. This is how we can measure the skills. This is how we can measure the impact. And so I think that that's key to it. So I'm really just kind of agreeing with everything you said, and adding the piece of watching it flow through an organization, watching it flow and seeing how people respond positively and end up wanting more. It is a cultural revolution, however. I mean, that is something that people don't always realize they're signing up for when they're signing up for teaching coaching skills. It does change the culture. And it's kind of up to you whether you warn them of that or not.
I think that's a really great point, right? Because people tend to get more confident, they advocate for themselves more. And so it's really important that the powers that be are ready for that, right? And people might leave. I've done many of leadership related projects that use coaching where people decide it's no longer the place for them as well. So that's something
Totally. I have too. And
Yeah.
I actually do warn about that when I'm not doing that work anymore, but when somebody hired myself or my partner and me, we would say, just so you know, people may leave. And we've had really good responses. They love the honesty actually and say, that's okay. If they discover this isn't the right place for them, I'd rather have them move on. And we have people who are happy to be here and who are the right fit. And I was really impressed with that actually, you know.
Agreed. I think that that's probably the best perspective to have, because you want people who want to be there, right? And you want people to be able to bring as much of themselves to work as possible. And sometimes where they are is not necessarily the best place. It ends up not being a win-win. Thank you both so much. I can't believe how fast time has moved. I want to just say thank you both so very much. I'm also going to drop some links in the chat. So if anyone has any additional questions for either guest expert, I want to make sure that you have their information. I also, of course, will be sharing all the same information in the follow-up email as well, but just wanted to make sure I did put it in the chat because we truly have run out of time. I want to give each guest speaker, we'll try and do 20 seconds, each of you 20 seconds maybe to share one last nugget with our audience and one last nugget with those who are going to watch the recording. So Taaka, let's start with you. What do you want to make sure everyone takes away from this conversation?
That leadership is a dance, huh? And as you adopt that coaching approach, ensure that those you are leading also appreciate it and also enjoy that coaching approach.
Amazing. Athena, what would you like to share?
Well, I love to dance. I think what I'd like to share is that it is also about a fundamental mindset where you believe, and I'm going to quote one of the foundations of the coactive coaching model, you believe that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. Therefore, you can trust them. You can trust them and you can invest in them. And that is fundamental to the coaching approach.
I absolutely love that. And I think, I think that's a really, really constructive way to approach supporting people and just thinking about people in general, right? They're whole. They have everything they need. And it's just about taking them maybe from good to excellent. And that's what I always try and keep in mind as well as I try and support people. So once again, just want to say thank you so very much to our guest experts. Thank you so much to the audience. As always, I also want to hear your feedback. So please let me know how you felt this conversation went. Please take 2 minutes just to give some feedback, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of. And of course, I also want to invite you to join our next roundtable next month. We'll be talking about delegation. We have 2 incredible humans, also from 2 very different places in the world, one based in the UK, one based in the US. And so I think it's also going to be a really, really great conversation all about delegation. And I hope to see all of you there. All right. So thank you all so very much for joining. It's always such a pleasure. I was telling the two guest experts earlier, this is my favorite part of really the month. But just thank you so much for joining us. I know you could be anywhere. So glad to have you here today with us. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Freya.
Thank you so much,
Bye,
Taaka.
everybody.
So nice
It's
to
a
have
pleasure to be
you.
with you
Bye,
all.
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dorcas, for being here.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Enjoy the rest of your
Bye.
month.
Go out and
Thank
coach.
you.
I love that.
Bye
Oh,
bye.
Oh,
What's that?
bye.
That's my daughter.
Thanks.
She was listening in and out.
Thank you for that. That was so cute.
That was so awesome.
Thank you, Erin, for your
That just made
question.
my day.
It was great to have you, Erin. Oh, wow.